Hi, everyone. It's great to have you all here at our meetup for the month of May. My name is Linda Nsifel, and I am the founder of Women in Research Monitoring, Evaluation, and Learning. It's so great to have you all here. We are going to have a very interesting session today, and we will walk through an agenda before we dive into our topic for discussion. But in the meantime, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat while I run us through the agenda. So please confirm with me if you can see my screen, which I'll be sharing in a bit. Okay, so I hope you can all see my screen.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so Women in RMEL, we are a network, a community that seeks to accelerate the careers of women in the research monitoring and evaluation space. And we are all about mentoring, we're all about impact, networking, and transformation. So today our topic is focused on mastering accountability reporting. But before we dive into this topic, I'll just walk us through the agenda so that we are all on the same page. So once again, you're all welcome. Please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. We'll walk through a brief icebreaker, and then I will introduce our speaker for today. She'll take us through the presentation. We'll have a session for Q&A, some announcements, and then we'll end the session. Okay, so we'll dive straight into our icebreaker activity. Okay, so for our icebreaker activity, we are going to guess where the various places, which I'm going to show you in the form of pictures, are located. So you can just mention the country. You don't have to go into so much details, but if you know where the place is, feel free to add that detail as well. But once you mention the country, you're able to guess the country correctly, that's fine. So there are a total of 6 images, and I'd like us to guess where the places are in the world. So please feel free to respond in the chat, or you can also unmute yourself and then give your answer. So we are starting with this image. It's a very picturesque image. You'd actually think that it's a painting, but it's actually a picture of something that is real. So any guesses from anyone? Anyone wants to try? Please feel free.
Hello.
Yes. Yes, please go for
Is
it.
is it Norway?
Okay, you're close. You've given a
Ooh.
good good answer, but
Okay.
yeah, that's not the exact answer. But I mean it's a clue you've given us, so thank you for giving us that clue. But yeah, it's within that region, the Scandinavian region. Any more tries? Okay, should I switch to the next one? Okay, so so I'll give the answer. Let me see, is there anyone in the chat? Okay, no answer in the chat. Okay, so this is a place in Iceland. So it's essentially the Northern Lights, which are also referred to as the Aurora Borealis. And this specific place is the Godafoss waterfall in the winter season. Yes, so that's Iceland. Okay, so next one up. Where in the world do you think this place is? Any guesses? Okay, let's see. Okay, so we have a response here. Switzerland. Good attempt. Good attempt. Thank you, Janet. But that's not the answer I'm after. But at least you've given us a clue. So the country also begins with the letter S. So you can think of countries beginning with the letter S located in Europe. Any more tries? Sweden? No, please. Keep going. South Africa, no, please. Thank you for your answer, though. Any more? We have one last attempt, and then I'll give the answer if nobody is able to give the answer. Slovakia? No, please. Okay. Thank you. Thank you all for your responses. But this is Scotland. So this is the coastal area of the Naas Point Lighthouse. So if you look closely, you'd see there's a lighthouse there. So this is actually in Scotland. Yeah. But thanks for your answers. Yeah. So we move to the next one. This probably should be pretty easy, but nevertheless, I'll still wait for your responses. Any tries? So this is our third one. We still have a few more to go. Yes, so Charity got this one right. It's Japan. And this place is the Fuji Mountain specifically. And you'd see the cherry like flowers showing or coloring this nice image. Yes, so this is Japan, specifically the Fuji Mountain. Well done, Charity. If it was an in-person event, I probably would have given you a prize. Okay, so we have this one here. Any guesses? Any answers coming up? Check the chat. Okay, Thailand. No, please. Keep trying. But yeah, it's not too far from where Thailand is. So it's in that area. Let's keep our answers coming. Going. Okay, because of time, I'm going to speed up a little bit. So this is New Zealand. Okay, someone said Indonesia. Okay. Okay, Janet. So yeah, it's New Zealand. So this is called the Lupine Field. So it's a lupine field located in one of their lakes in New Zealand. Yeah. Okay, so move to the last two. Any guesses here? Oh, sorry, I went forward too early. Okay, can anyone guess where this place is? Any attempts? Okay, going once, going twice, going thrice. Do I see any guesses? Anyone coming up with an answer? Okay, I don't see any answer. So, okay. So this is the Napali coast in Hawaii. Hawaii. Okay, so we'll go to the last one. Oh, okay. That's an answer there. All right. Thank you, Janet. Okay, this is like a bonus. I believe most of us should be able to identify this place. Any attempts? Okay, let's see. Niagara Falls? No, but it's a good answer. Thank you so much, Charity. But that's not what I'm after. Keep coming. I'm sure you'll get it very soon. Any answers coming? Yes. So we do have, okay, so it's okay. So I have two answers which I will accept. Yes, actually now three. So Janet, Ali, Nafi, and Blessings, you've all given your answers spot on. Thank you so much. So Victoria Falls, Zambia, Zimbabwe. Yes, so it's like borderline between Zimbabwe and Zambia. And just a fun fact about Victoria Falls. So it happens to be the largest waterfall in the world due to its immense curtain of falling water. All right, excellent. Thank you all for participating. I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, hopefully we will all be able to travel to one or two of these places sometime. Okay, so I will stop sharing and dive into the meaty part of our meeting today. So I'll introduce our speaker and then I'll invite her to share her presentation. So our speaker for today is in the person of Miriam Chikwanda, and she is a social development professional with over 12 years of experience in program design, monitoring, evaluation, and learning. As the founder and lead of Fructuous Consulting, she has led evaluations and MEL system designs across Africa with a strong focus on feminist, participatory, and rights-based approaches. Her work spans sectors including sexual reproductive health and rights, otherwise known as SRHR, youth development, women empowerment, livelihoods, governance, climate change, and education. And she's deeply committed to building equitable and accountable systems that center community voices. Miriam is also a trained social worker and a mentor to emerging evaluators. Amazing. So this is our resource person for today. Miriam, we are all ears. You're welcome to share your presentation with us.
Great. Thank you so much. It's so weird hearing about my biography
I
from
know,
someone.
right?
But thank you for the lovely intro
Sure.
and welcome to everyone who is in attendance today. So I know the topic says mastering accountability reporting, but I have almost like half an hour. So by no means is this supposed to be um, expected to be a master's module. So rather, it is really just a teaser or maybe a refresher to those that are familiar to the topic. So yes, I'm really excited to be here today and explore with you some key tips on accountability, particularly within the realm of monitoring, evaluation, reporting, and learning. So we want to really, when this topic was pitched for me to come and network and share with you, I really thought of taking an angle of how can we look at accountability moving from its traditional, the way it has been understood traditionally. So moving from compliance to practice that really empowers learning and inclusivity. So just to say that I am by no means an accountability expert. I'm really just sharing ideas based on the my work experience as a male consultant, and also based on my reading on the subject. So I really want this session to be interactive. I also want to learn from you. about your experiences with accountable reporting and what you have found to be useful. So it could also be a knowledge sharing session as well. So just a snapshot of what we want to cover today. We want to have a look at understanding the meaning of purpose and purpose of accountability reporting in M&E. And we want to also explore that shift. How can we make that shift from compliance to holistic accountability? Share some practical strategies for more inclusive and transformative reporting. And if there is time, we could use the Q&A as well to ask some questions and explore some answers together. Or we could also use that to reflect on personal and sort of organizational reporting practices that have worked for you that others can take as takeaways. So please think of these as really takeaways that you can take. If you are already familiar with the subject, then take them as reminders or refreshers. We can never stop learning, really. So to start off, I want to just pick your brain, if you will allow me. I have 3 questions that I have set, and for these questions, I really just want to set a baseline of people's knowledge on the subject, so that I can understand whether I'm preaching to the choir here or if really we are speaking the same language. If not, then how can we maybe redirect our language so that it is the same? So I've set an ideas board. An ideas board is really just like a collaborative virtual online platform or software that we are going to use. And you simply click on the link that I'm going to paste in the chat. And when you are in, I will also project it on here shortly. So what you do when you click on the link, you will be led to these 3 questions. See which questions you want to answer. You don't have to answer all 3. You can answer 1 or 2 or 3 or all of them. Yeah, so that's really up to you what you want to answer. So I will give you about maybe 5 minutes for you to just reflect individually on what word comes to mind when you hear accountability reporting. And when we are saying we are doing accountable reporting, who are we really being accountable to? I just want to get an understanding if there are any differences in which stakeholders that people are being accountable to in their programs. And also, how are you being accountable? So remember, just choose whichever question. If you want to answer all, that's fine. So let me show you what the platform looks like. Let me stop share for a bit. And I will go. Okay, so here is the page. And here is the link. I'll put the link in the chat for you. Any questions before you go? Or before you get into do you understand what needs to be done? Just give me reactions, or if you want me to repeat the instruction.
Yeah, I think it's understandable. But maybe you can
Okay.
go over just in case the people who joined a bit later.
Yeah, so you can see my ideas board, right?
Yes, it's
You can see it.
visible. Yes, please.
Yeah, so when you get to it, if you want to answer a question, you just click on this green plus and a post-it will pop up, and then you
Mm.
just start typing in there. So like you click a popper and then a sticky note will come up, and then that's where you post your response. And I will start the timing now. So there is no wrong or right answer, and I'm not going to know who wrote what. So if you're feeling a bit unsure, don't worry about that. And if you are a bit shy, I won't be able to know if it was your answer. Great. I see some answers coming. Transparency, find agency, beneficiaries, being accountable, I'm thinking. And then who people are being accountable. Donors are always on the top list. Hey, it's good to see the program participants as well. That's really interesting. And beneficiaries are also part of the list. Okay, in terms of how you're being accountable, we've got a two-way communication. Great. And if we go back to what word comes up, we're getting phrases than words, which is good. That's fine. Keep it coming. So visibility, transparencies appeared twice, or thrice rather. And we've got management, openness. So it looks like we get some qualities of what accountable reporting should be. Funding agency, all right. Effective use of resources, integrity, and being ethical and virtuous. Great. So these are really nice principles of accountable reporting coming up. Okay. And if we go in the middle, additions are unborn generation. I would like to know what that is. Being accountable to unborn generation. That's really forward thinking. Staff, okay. Any stakeholder affected by your program. Great. Accurate reporting and feedback. That's how you are being accountable. And I think some of the words that you've put here on green also could fit here under how. So how are you being accountable? You are being transparent. You are being reflective. You are being open. You're looking at effective use of resources. We're really good. That's really good to know. Is anyone reporting being accountable to partners? Because in some program you do have partners. Is there some sort of accountability there? I'm just wondering. I'm seeing communities in terms of donors and in terms of beneficiaries and donors. But I was just wondering about partnerships. Is there any accountability going on there? Okay, one more minute. If you still have additional thoughts, please feel free to share. Yeah, that is correct. Transparency is also being accountable. That's really true. Or it could be a way of being being accountable. Great. Anything else? Looks like there's no action going on, but there's 1 minute left. All right, great. Thank you so much for sharing. It looks like we are on track and we know what we are doing when we're talking about accountability. I just want to go back to my slides quickly. And it's good to see that there is variety as well in terms of who people are being accountable to. So that shift that I was talking about from compliancy seems to be already evident through some of your answers. Great. So moving on, When we are talking about understanding accountability, we already know that monitoring and evaluation is the backbone of your development interventions because it ensures high quality implementation. It provides that timely, continuous systemic information for informed management decisions, measures that contributes to impact and outcomes, and also future planning. Like someone says, future generation or unborn generation, you start to plan your projects with them in mind through monitoring evaluation. But what is accountability? So we often hear accountability as it is embedded in some M&E acronyms. So what we already know that originally monitoring evaluation was just M&E. It evolved, the name started to evolve to include accountability, learning, and reporting. And these acronyms are often used interchangeably or depending on what you want to focus on. If your learning is part of your focus for M&E, you add the L or you emphasize on the MEL. So most development agencies therefore began using including accountability, learning, and reporting, and sometimes they would use MEL or meal, just that emphasis. But as you can see, accountability cannot just happen in isolation. There has to be some monitoring, evaluation happening in there. But each of these components together, they do play a vital role to contribute to other components by providing input, feedback for improvement. So some can also act in other ways. Instances, they can work as cross-cutting and crucial for ensuring quality standards at every stage of your program management or program cycle. So when we look at accountability, we understand it as a key feature that gives both primary and secondary stakeholders the power to hold us as program managers or program implementers accountable in ways that influence the project or organization's policies, priorities, and actions at all levels. So it can be local, national, global. We want to be accountable through all those levels of stakeholders. And we want also to be accountable through information sharing, feedback, complaints, reporting, and also feedback loops. So as you were transparency, so those principles that you have already mentioned also form part of accountability. So for example, if you were to being accountable to children and communities, that would involve giving them a voice and opportunity to influence relevant decisions. You can't say you are accountable to them some sort of voice within your reporting systems. And also vice versa, accountability has to be reciprocal. If you are being accountable to one stakeholder, you should, as a program implementer, you should be able to hold them accountable some way. But traditionally, we don't really see that with donors. Donors are usually not being held accountable, but we are rather being accountable to them. But that two-way street is not very apparent. So this image really speaks the truth that we often do not admit out loud. Traditionally, the M&E, especially reporting, ended up being focused on accountable upward to just funders. Even when you deeply value learning and community change, the way that reporting happens usually is shaped by donors, templates, and key performing indicators and log frames. And sometimes because of the pressures or that your program is going under, such as maybe time constraints, or it could be donor demands, as we have mentioned, it could be contextual changes, you might be forced to just do it simply being accountable to just one stakeholder, which is usually the funder, because they are the ones usually that hold the money. And to keep your program going, you have to be pleasing to them in what way. But what I want to just encourage you to ask yourselves today and after is thinking about, can we reimagine accountability reporting in a way that doesn't ignore donors, but also honors communities, partners, and internal learning? So creating that balance between, yes, being accountable to donors, because obviously when you have been when someone has invested money into a project, they obviously want to know the use of that money. So that accountability cannot be trivialized, but we also want to create that balance to make sure that we are being accountable to the ones that benefit from the program, and also to yourselves to learn from the project, and being accountable to yourselves is the ones that are implementing the project. Just looking if there's anything. Yeah, so please feel free to use the chat as well if there's anything that sparks your interest, or if there's anything that you want to share with others. We have limited time, so the chat would be the best as well to add on inputs or questions as indicated in the chat. So let's just talk a little bit more about traditional accountability and its dangers. So traditionally, accountability has been the cornerstone of your organizational and systemic operations. So particularly within the complicated systems where processes and outcomes are more predictable and controllable. In such environments, setting targets and assessing performance independently and standard practices, it comes easily and naturally. So, but the danger there is that the emphasis is on now placed on individual performance. You're not really looking at how you are performing, instead of looking at what results are you getting out of the performance. So that strict adherence to rules and aversion to risks and ensuring predictable and consistent result is sort of lost in traditional accountability reporting. And what we want to know, to emphasize on, is that accountability does matter, even when you look at it on its own, but that rigid top-down measurement from donors can do more harm than good if it's just that, if that balance that we've talked about is not created. So what we could see as dangers is that organizations reshape interventions to meet donor objectives, which may not really reflect the actual needs of the community, because the person who's giving money is the one that is dictating how the community should be, the program should run and should be designed. And sometimes it can be misaligned to the context in which that program is operating. And also another danger is that strategy is often detected by donors, not informed by local expertise or experiences of NGOs on the ground or organizations on the ground. Again, that being sensitive to context and aligning the project to context is missed through that strategy. And then the other danger is that funding is tied to donor-filled priorities, leading to a delivery of interventions that have little to no impact. And also, M&E becomes about telling a compelling story to donors rather than supporting adaptive learning, truth-telling, decision-making, and future informing. So shift has to be focused from being output based, so only measuring number of training that we have done, looking at so that shift needs to happen from looking at what you are doing as a just reporting rather on what you are doing as a program team, and move on to who is changing, outcome based or outcome impact oriented reporting, where you really delve deep into changes that are happening because of what you're doing. So what you're doing is not that it's not important, but when you focus on what is coming out of what you are doing, then you can look at how you are contributing to those changes. So your value is still in there, but then your accountability has sort of some level because you are now looking at results, which can then inform some other changes. And then there's a danger of MEL becoming a tool for control rather than collaboration. Accountability flows in only one direction to donors in this traditional setup, right? And rarely donors are held accountable, like I said before. And MEL is also reduced to compliance tasks that drain energy and time without really contributing to any meaningful change. So you really spend more time trying to impress donors and trying to tell them about what you did rather than what really changed because of what you did or the support that you provided. Okay. So why is there emphasis on learning? I just wanted to know from you from the chat, quick answer, yes, no, maybe, I don't know. Can we be accountable without learning? What are your thoughts on that? Yes, no, maybe, I don't know in the chat. Can we be accountable without learning? Nana says no. No, I hear another no. Ooh, Emil says yes. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Emil. Charity says because a lot of time there is unintended impact. So is that a yes or no, Charity? Janet says no. Okay, so it looks like no is the actual answer. I would like to hear from Emil why you say yes. What's your yes based on? Emil, can you speak?
Of course, thank you for giving me the floor. Mr.
Go
Vic,
ahead.
I joined from GRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Mm,
Uh, I'm a French speaker, but make to make I try to make some effort to be bilingual. So I think in accountability, we dealing comes just for depth reflection. So to be accountable, it doesn't need a nailing part because we respond, we, we respond, we communicate, we give some information to our stockholders in all levels, from donors to households or beneficiaries that is who is supported by our information. That's the reason why I think
mm.
learning comes to complete meal generally. But accountability, if we like to separate some words between meal monitoring as is part of work, evaluation, and so on, and accountability can be take only and make some difference. So
Okay.
I have a lot to say, but perhaps I have a language challenge. That's why I can explain all
Okay.
I have or I can send. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Feel free to expand in the chat if there's anything else that you want to say. So I thought there would be a fourth response that says it depends. So Emil, you are right in your own way to say yes. And the reason why I say that is that if you want to only focus on accountability alone without the learning, you are still being accountable, but you are still focusing on the traditional compliance-based risk aversion and sort of punitive way or upward looking, not upward, but top down as method. So there you are sort of practicing some sort of accountability, but still in that traditional sense where you won't really use what you are being accountable to any further other than just being compliant. So evolving from traditional unilateral accountability means being answerable to multiple stakeholders. So I'm glad that you indicated in the first question that they are sort of variations in the stakeholders that you're being accountable to, the donors, the beneficiaries, yourselves as the program managers. So there needs to be that upward, which would be maybe donor, outward, which would be your beneficiaries, your partners, communities, and maybe downward, you come down at the ground, being the project management team. So those being accountable from those angles is what incorporates learning. And that is what holistic accountability is. So, and in your reporting, it will also reflect that you are being accountable through those, all those in those different directions, upward, sideways, and downward. But it can't exist without learning, because learning transforms accountability from that punitive, target-driven process into one that supports growth, reflection that you've mentioned, as well as what to think about when you hear about accountability, and also meaningful improvement. And that's the type of accountability that you want to target on. Looking at learning in terms of systemic incorporation of lessons, recommendations, observations into the program, insights from accountability mechanisms that you are using with the aim of strengthening adaptive programming, and also effective learning systems, setting up effective learning system that promotes self-reflection, embrace failure as a catalyst for growth. Because with traditional, you are so afraid of failing, because failing and not reaching a target would mean no funding. But when you incorporate and emphasize on learning, you have allowed that space to experiment, explore, and adapt as you go along, which could be construed as risky, but what project isn't risky? Rather, you might as well just learn as you are and adapt as you go along, but than just looking at it from an output-based angle. So learning really adds value to informing program refinement, revising strategies, updating your plans and frameworks. It contributes to generation of dissemination of knowledge and products, and supports internal and external stakeholders. So it's not just looking for one stakeholder, but it looks to include every stakeholder and being accountable to them. Looking at the time, and we have 10 minutes left. I just wanted to share with you this mountain of accountability, which I read from Blandin's foundation. It's a foundation based in the US, and they came up with this mountain of accountability, realizing that accountability is just not, there are many factors. It's like climbing a mountain. It's not an easy task. So they have provided this mountain of accountability to show different levels that you can start to incorporate learning into your accountability practices. So you start at the bottom at level 1, which is basic accountability. So that base represents where foundational obligations are met. So this is more of the sort of traditional way. That's where you start. And here you are answering just 2 questions when you are reporting. Did we implement our work as planned or authorized? Did we meet quality standards? That's what you're reporting on. And there is a list within here. I don't know if you can read it. I won't read it for the sake of time, but it shows all the documents or data sources that you, or methods that you can use to answer these questions. But your aim is then to get to level 3, but level 2 focuses on accountability for impact. So it involves more complex and committed practices required for reflection and adaptation. So things like major program evaluations, things like surveys, grantee perception reports. As you can see, there is engaging of different stakeholders, and there are these 3 key questions that you could use to guide yourselves and see whether you are incorporating the accountability for impact and effectiveness. And then level 3 is the summit, which represents transformative accountability, which is a holistic space with no set paths shaped by experience, learning, and context. And those upward arrows show how routine data from the base, the lower levels, can be used to inform the upper level. And then downward arrows represents how insights you get from the accountability for learning can be used to guide improvements at the operational sort of base level. So if you can, instead of treating each level as a separate and assess them separately, you, as an organization, you want to aim to leverage on these real opportunities, which lie in integrating learning across all 3 levels. So you could aim to start with level. So let's say you have assessed yourself and you see you're at level 1, you could aim to start going into level 2. And then as time goes on, you also, and also as resources become available, or as you become confident in level 2, you will then be able to use what you have learned in level 2 to improve level 1. And then you can start to strengthen level 2 and start to use these questions to guide your thinking into how can we start to answer these questions in our reporting to reach level 3. So it's quite an interesting approach to how you can incorporate learning, development, and adaptation in your accountability processes. So have a look at it. If you want to have a look at where I found it, I can send you a link and you can read more about it in your own time and also start to incorporate it in your organizations. It can be quite useful to gauge it, to gauge where you are as an organization, and also map a way forward of where you want to be, aiming for level 3. Great. So as a way forward, we want to, so realizing that there are challenges, obviously, in organization programs to weave in evaluation into your everyday life, to shift focus on this work. So it's about, so that you move towards improvement and not just proving that you are doing something, which is the output based. There are some of these principles that I thought I could highlight for transformative reporting, and some of things you have already mentioned. So we want to look at donors and evaluators to move just beyond measuring outcomes, but outputs rather, and the focus should be on improving program design and implementation. So here what we mean by shift from results only focus to learning and improvement. In your proposals, you could then start to emphasize to donors that you also would like to, instead of jumping into answering the question of what did we do or did we get results, you want also to look at assessing the design of that project first to see if it has been designed well, because that's where you can start to learn about what needs to be tweaked or changed in the program implementation for you to get the results that you want. Because if you ignore the design, that accountability, holistic accountability, is lost, because you won't be able to get the results that you are wishing for, because maybe the program has been designed misaligned to the context, for example. And also, donors should prioritize funding evaluations that support adaptive learning, not just those that measure impact, but also are willing to adapt their processes. So this includes investing in feedback loops, internal reflections, course correction, emphasizing on those things. And it's quite important to also emphasize in this starts with challenging donors to embrace things like experimentation and iterations, reflective storytelling, relationship building, elevating community voices. So these are the things that are quite important. And I've seen from the work that I've done that organizations are starting to challenge in their proposals donors to embrace participatory grant making, where it is the people of the community that get to have a say on where the funds go, instead of the funder detecting what happens to the fund, because it is the people of the community knows the context better than the donor. So participatory grant making is making waves as well to emphasize and also to encourage that inclusivity and also local-based approaches that are quite sensitive to context. So I just wanted to say, remember that these aspects need to be considered upfront with the funding stakeholders, because you can't not mention it in your proposal and then you realize, oh, we need funding for a design evaluation, for example. So it's something that you need to vouch for and stand for in your proposal, even if providing evidence where you have seen these things happening or these practices reaping benefits. And then that helps to onboard funders into adapting and embracing these holistic accountability practices. Okay, so I've eaten into your time. I'm sorry about that, but I'm gonna just end off on these two key things to just prompt your thinking after this engagement, to just think about how can you start to include, if you are already including, how can you strengthen including community voices in your reporting? How can you strengthen your reporting such that it leads to real change in your work? You're not just focused on talking about what you did, but focusing on using those results to changes. So focusing on changes and using them to improve for even better changes. Thank you so much. I don't know if there's any time now. There's a minute left now, I see, for Q&A or comments or questions. So maybe let me stop there.
Okay,
Yes, Anna, I
thank
can
you.
share the slide.
Yes, we have two requests regarding the slides. Yeah, so if you're willing to do that, that would be great. Thank you so much. All right, thank you, Miriam, for that brilliant presentation and exposition on the topic. Thank you so much. We can make room for a few questions, if participants are willing to spare maybe about 10 minutes, if that's okay, or 5 to 10 minutes roughly. So are there any questions in the chat or comments? Okay, I don't see any.
Not yet.
Okay, so I think Emil
Oh,
has a follow-up question. He wants to know if the questions in the slides are to be answered right now.
we would spend the whole night here.
Yeah.
So they were just prompts, sort of as an call to action for you as program implementers and managers to start thinking about how can you start to incorporate, depending on where you are, how can you start to incorporate the holistic practices, accountability holistic practices. And if you are already doing it, I'm sure there are ways to start strengthening, thinking about those three levels of holistic accountability. If you are on level 2, how can you aim to now go into level 3, where there is learning, development, and adaptation for improvement?
Great. Thank you. Emil, I hope you're fine. Okay, so Janet commends you for the presentation. She said, great presentation. Constance said, very insightful presentation. Great, thank you.
Great. So I'll share the presentation with Linda, and then she can just share it amongst the group.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how you do that. I can see emails. Well, where there is emails, maybe I can start copying those emails, because once we've left here, I won't be able to see them.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can request them via LinkedIn. If you can't, you can just search my name, Miriam Chikwanda, on LinkedIn and message me, or whichever way. Emil, go ahead. Yeah, I think you have a hand up.
Thank you. I really appreciate and thanks a lot for sharing this first uh, slides according to this accountability. I worked also in accountability as a call center manager, and I was responsible for accountability. I think now, according to your slide and session, I was working with holistic uh, manner or to set accountability, because when I see now the mountain of accountability, I realize that uh, we were working in the first level also. That's why I responded to your question that it doesn't matter to include learning and accountability. By the way, now I discovered that it is most important to include that. So, in our holistic manner to assess uh, accountability, we have to collect some reports, some information from our stakeholders, our beneficiaries, and we investigate if there is sensibility, because there are others news or others reports that ask us to be investigate, and we share some responses, but we have to go in depth or deeper with learning part. So I really appreciate this session, and I hope your slide will be shared with us, and we thank you for that. Thank you.
Great. The slides are here for a charge. I'm
Definitely.
just kidding.
Okay.
Right. I'm glad to hear that,
Mhm.
Emil, that you can see what you can reflect on what you've been doing, and now you can see areas for improvement. And I'm glad to see that mountain of accountability can be useful as well in directing your future path on how you can strengthen it to learning, because it is really important to incorporate learning into your accountability. So now I'm glad you are converted to know you can't be accountable to learning without learning, rather. So that is good news. Anything else?
Okay, I don't see any hands up. I guess people are thinking. Okay, I just have yeah, a very short question. So it has to do with how to have that conversation with the funder about them also giving funding or allocation to accountability and then learning.
Mm.
Because sometimes the funders can be so fixated or focused more on the results. Like we want the results, where are the results, you know? And even if there are no results, like yeah, it kind of puts you on edge, especially you receiving the funding to probably execute the project on behalf of the funder. They've given you the money, but yeah, there are no tangible results within the time frame, or maybe the results they're expecting are not what it is, you know, and you also don't feel proud to share it with them. But from what I know and from the little Emily have done, no result is still a result, and that's also like an opportunity to learn because learning is
Mm.
not just about the positive aspects of like, you know, M&E, but sometimes the negatives can also provide you with some kind of foundation to even do better or like just to change a few things, maybe with the methodology or the strategy or the approach. And I like the fact that you brought in the aspect of adaptive learning because I think that kind of gives room for, yeah, for funders to think differently and
Mm.
maybe to be a bit flexible. I understand that, yeah, sometimes because they are dealing with money that they also have to be accountable to the citizenry. Yeah, sometimes they are very eager to know where every amount of yeah
Penny
amount
went.
yeah. So yeah, I can also understand where they are coming from. But yeah, any thoughts or perspectives on that will be great.
Yeah, that is really important. I'm currently working with an organization that supports journalists, women journalists, and we have been looking at their data collection processes. And there are some questions that actually don't make sense in terms of needing them to learn about their project. So I did ask them, what prompted you to add this question? And they keep saying the funder wanted to know about it. So the funder said we should add this. The funder said we should add this. So I hear you. It is not an easy task because sometimes you can't argue with the funder because you want to please them. And sometimes they just, these questions that they are emphasizing on are sort of nice to have. There's really nothing worth learning about those. It's just like, oh, I'm reading this, I would like to know about this. Then you just throw in a question. So what I've noticed about organizations that struggle with those kind of because it's difficult for them to push back and say we can't add this, is that funders are not involved in the design process of things. So it would be helpful if it can be done to invite your funder when you are designing that program, when you are outlining those objectives, when you are developing your theory of change. Let a funder be there so that they realize that change just doesn't happen in a linear form. You cannot just come and say, we want to know about these results. It takes a lot of efforts and context and other considerations for you to get those results. So if a funder is upfront involved in the process of designing, and if you then in your proposal also vouch for, before we can talk about results, we
Mhm.
want to start with a design project, design evaluation. This is why an evaluation of our design is important towards, you link it towards getting your, speaking about your outcomes
Yeah.
or your impact. Because if you don't set that program properly,
Sure.
yes, you learn from mostly negative things,
Mhm.
but then it doesn't really map a way forward on what did you do right. Then
Right.
you
Yeah.
might even duplicate it again and you have already wasted money. So let them see that it's actually to their advantage that we want this design evaluation, because if we don't, we might be forced to come and duplicate because things didn't work the first
True.
time. So what I can say is onboarding
Mm-hmm.
funders in your design processes, and also reporting challenges timely, and let them see those things. If they ask for something to be added on midway,
Yeah.
if it can't be done, then that's where also need to put your foot down and say, this is what we agreed to, this
Yeah.
is only what we can do. And that could be a motivation for, hey, can we have more money if you now want to add more things? So
Exactly.
I think that's what I can say based on
Sure.
that.
Sure. Thank you so much. We have Constance. I think we'll take the last one from her. So Constance, please go ahead.
Hi everyone. Sorry I joined in late. But I just want to add on to what Miriam just said. I like the idea of involving funders right from the beginning, from the design phase, and also continuing through your as during the implementation. You know, raising these issues. But then there are some times when I've worked in a project where it was mostly human centered. It was a human centered design, so it was a bit easy to convince donors to add more money to facilitate funding. But it
Mm,
wasn't always easy because this funding, we would either get less than what we requested, uh, or or um, or none at all sometimes in some
mm,
financial years. So perhaps what I can add is sometimes you have to go out of your way. I know this is sort of cliche really, but when especially when we say out of your way, we are looking at this is extra work. But if you during your quarterly reports or donor reports you include that you are able to do this and it yielded this result in terms of learning, then they're more able to see and they're more inclined to at least understand what it is that can be done exactly to
mm,
achieve the results or whatever you want to you want them to see. So this one is now in terms of if it's not the design, if it's not the design phase, like it's a project that's continuing, then
mm,
doing something like extra in terms of learning and reporting it and yeah, reporting the outcome to the donor could help them to see exactly what your point is, and why there is need for incorporating learning. Yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
that's it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for adding on, Constance. Great. So we're almost at the end. So Miriam, do you have just one more take-home message for all of us before we close?
So yeah, I think just to say, accountability is a journey. If you it haven't been really thought of yet or prioritized in your programs, people are starting to make it a thematic area even in their programs. So, but there are opportunities to start incorporating it, and I think that those levels are quite a good guideline to not overwhelm you and feel like, oh, we really need to get to learning like tomorrow. You can ease your process into it, as long as your agenda is to get to that summit. And maybe that's where you could also rope in your funders so that they could support you to get to that stage of accountability for learning, adaptation, and development for decision making.
Great. Thank you so much, Miriam. Participants, let's show our appreciation to Miriam. She's done a fantastic job to unpack this topic that we sometimes don't really pay attention to, but it's very relevant in our practice as meal, MEL, M&E professionals, whichever one you can relate with. So before we finally leave, I would like to just touch on a few things that I've shared in the chat. So the first one is on the feedback of this session. So please do well to take some time to provide feedback on how the session went. And also you are welcome to suggest topics that you want us to handle during our meetups. So for the next one, we'll be announcing it in due course. So please be on the lookout on our social media pages. So we have active presence on X and then LinkedIn. So if you are not following us, please do that ASAP. And then we also have the recordings of Women in RMEL sessions, which you can find on our YouTube channel. So you can even go as far back as 2023 when we actually started having these online sessions or webinars. So you can look at the various topics and yeah, learn a thing or two that may help you in your practice. And you can also share with others as well. And then I'd also like to mention that there's this big event organized by the Global Evaluation Initiative. It's like an evaluation office that is part of the World Bank, and they're organizing this Global Evaluation Week. I'm sure some of us might be familiar with it. So usually it's like it's an event, a week-long event, which brings together people who are in the evaluation space, who are practicing in M&E or relatable fields. And they organize these sessions where they talk or discuss on various topics that are pertinent to us as M&E, MEAL, or MEL professionals. And so it would be a great opportunity for us to, yes, take some time off to be part of that week. Some of us might remember that Women in RMEL, we did a session last year. But yeah, I'm just being an advocate for this event, just to invite us all to sign up and join some of the sessions. Yeah, but this time Women in RMEL, we are not participating, but it would be nice if we can just join in to enrich our knowledge from this event. All right. So on that note, I'd like to wish everyone a happy end to the month of May. And yes, I look forward to seeing you all as we enter the month of June. I wish you all the best in your endeavors. So take care, everyone, and bye for now. Bye.
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 Bye bye.
Bye.